For the function f of x equals x to the fifth, what transformations must be applied to f of x to create g of x equals 1/2 x all to the fifth power plus 2? Now notice how I read this all to the fifth power because the 1/2 and the x are inside the parentheses and then to the fifth power. Then it says graph both functions. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out the transformations here. One thing I noticed, there's a plus 2 outside the parentheses, and that means it's going to be translation to up. And I can put vertical translation to up also. They both mean the same thing. Then we have this 1/2 inside the parentheses with the x here raised to the fifth power. Now what this 1/2 does is it's a stretch horizontally by 2. Okay, and that's just from knowing my transformations here. I know when I have a plus 2 outside the parentheses, it's a vertical translation of 2 up, and when I have a value inside the parentheses, it's going to be a horizontal stretch or shrink, and based on this 1/2, it's a stretch by 2 horizontally. Now what I'd like to do is graph both functions on the calculator to verify that is correct. And here I have my color calculator. You can use a regular calculator. I just use color because it's simpler to see the difference. Here we'll put in my x to the fifth power. And I'm going to put 0.5 or 0.5 times x, close parentheses, and then to the fifth power, because 0.5 is the same as 1/2. And I wrote it that way just so the calculator doesn't confuse order of operations. M plus 2. Now let's graph and take a look. There's the first graph, f of x equals x to the fifth. And here comes the second graph. G of x equals 1/2 x to the fifth and then plus 2. And I know this even without the color because it graphs the functions in order. My x to the fifth was the first graph, and the 1/2 x all to the fifth plus 2 was my second one. Okay, so you can see the shift of 2 up pretty clearly here. Oh, and also notice my window, it's already been optimized. What if it wasn't? What if I was something like this Zoom 6 standard window? There's the first function. There's the second one. And this is a perfectly fine view as well. If you want to adjust your window, you could do that. Actually, I'll just go off this one here. So see, there's a vertical translation of 2 up. You can see that because this red, or the g of x, is shifted up 2. And also, there's that horizontal stretch. Notice that the g of x graph is twice as wide as the f of x graph. Okay, so my conclusions were correct, and that is verified by this graph here. And that's why you use the graphing calculator. You want to verify your conclusions. Okay, so I can go back here and say, yes, these are absolutely correct. Translation of 2 up and stretch horizontally by 2.